and welcome to our series of podcasts exploring standards. My name is Donna, and for this episode, we've been joined by ISO consultant and trainer, certified Six Sigma black belt, Jonathan Hurley. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm very well, thank you, Donna. Yes, thank you for having me on your podcast.
Lovely, you're very welcome. Looking forward to learning a bit more about this. So I will kick off then by asking the first question. What is Six Sigma?
Six Sigma is fundamentally a business process improvement approach based on reducing variation in processes such that you produce fewer defects, or you could say you more consistently provide products and services that meet customer expectations.
So just looking at how companies can use this then in a practical way.
Well, Six Sigma is a project management based approach to business process improvement. So it has a very structured methodology, which lends itself very well to implementation in a business. And really, from a practical perspective, it will obviously enhance culture within the business, because nobody wants to work for an organization that's consistently or constantly apologizing to customers. It makes it a relatively stressful place to work. But from a commercial perspective, of course, it has the potential to earn a greater share of your customer's wallet, or to attract new customers, because you build a reputation for being a high quality organization. And associated with that, of course, will be an increase in turnover, but also increased profits as well, because as we know, poor quality costs. There are both internal and external costs associated with poor quality. And they can be as much as 25% of sales revenue is sort of eaten up by rework and lost opportunity costs and management time in dealing with defects and quality issues. So I would say that from a practical perspective, it will have internal and external benefits, that the business itself will be a more fulfilling place to work. We'll spend less time dealing with customer issues and spend more time looking forward to the future. But also from an external perspective, you will build a reputation as a trustworthy organization. And you could say it will please the shareholders as well, that turnover will increase, but more naturally, profit will increase, profit percentage will increase, because you're spending less time and money on non-conforming products or services.
Absolutely, yeah. Time is money, so
absolutely,
pretty critical for businesses to be focusing and looking in from that perspective for sure. Kind of looking at small business then, Jonathan, is it suitable for the smaller businesses, not just the big ones?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's suitable for both small and large businesses. Business size is not a barrier to business process improvement. The deployment of Six Sigma within a smaller business may be slightly different, but in larger businesses, there are different roles within the Six Sigma business process improvement approach. So I'm a certified black belt. There are green belts, yellow belts, white belts, and they all have a different role. What you will find is that in smaller organizations, you won't necessarily have individual black belts, green belts, yellow belts, that sort of thing. You may have a black belt who also fulfills the role of the green belt as well. So there may be some crossover there between those roles. They won't be as delineated as they are in larger organizations. So some of the big manufacturing organizations will have multiple black belts, multiple green belts, multiple yellow belts. Whereas in a smaller organization, you may have a small number of people, and sometimes there will be a green stroke black belt in the business, that sort of thing. So the difference really between the two roles is that black belts are really program managers. They're responsible for the overall approach in the business to business process improvement, the more strategic elements of business process improvement, and will be responsible for managing a portfolio of business process projects that are running concurrently. Whereas green belts tend to take charge of an individual improvement project and run that themselves. That's fundamentally
right,
different.
okay.
So black belt is a program manager, green belt is a project manager, a bit like an air traffic controller is a program manager, and an airline pilot is a project manager. That sort of scenario.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. So, yeah, when you first mentioned the belts, you're thinking about karate.
Well, yeah, that
Lovely.
did. I'm not really quite sure why, because Six Sigma was actually developed in the US, of course, by Motorola, or at least it was codified in the US by
Right,
Motorola.
okay.
So we look at lean sometimes as well, which may be the subject of a future consideration, but that does come from Japan, and a lot of the words used in lean are Japanese, but not so much in Six Sigma. Six Sigma came from the US, so quite why they use black belt, green belt, yellow belt, I'm not quite sure. I would just say one thing to your audience is that if you do a Six Sigma qualification, you don't get a belt. I was very
It's
disappointed.
not a physical belt
No,
involved.
no, it took me 2 years to qualify as a certified black belt, and I got a pen with a Six Sigma logo on the side, I think. Yeah, no belt at all. So, yeah, manage your expectations, I would say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, brilliant. Oh, dear. Okay, so is there a certification for this
Well, it's an
as a thing?
individual. It's not like the ISO standards where a management system is certified in a business like 9001
Right,
or 14001, etc. This is more of a personal qualification. So yes, there is certification, but not for the business as a whole. More
right.
so for the individual. So you can just attend, for example, green belt training, and you'll get a certificate
Right.
saying you have attended a green belt training course.
Mhm.
If you choose then to go on and actually manage an assessed project that will be assessed by your mentor, who will be a black belt, and also take an exam, then you become a certified green belt, and they are different. It's almost a difference between sort of, as a green belt who's attended a course, you've had some training. As a certified green belt, your black belt is confirming that you are actually competent to act as a green belt in a business because you've actually demonstrated the knowledge, the skills necessary. And similarly for black belt as well. So I'm a certified black belt, hence the reason why it took 2 years to qualify, because you have to run a project. I had to give presentations, and also I'm afraid to say, there are some exams as well. So yeah,
The dreaded exam. No,
yeah. I
you
mean,
got
there
through
are
it okay though,
ISO.
clearly.
Yeah, that's it. There are ISO guidelines associated with Six Sigma. So 18404, ISO 18404. Those are the
Right.
guidelines associated with the competencies required for a green belt, black belt, etc. And then there's 13053, which is guidelines on quantitative methods in Six Sigma and things like this, the DMAIC approach, that sort of stuff. But they're not standards, they are guidelines. You can't be audited against them. You can't have a certificate on the wall for them. They are just purely guidelines.
Yeah, and then as such, they can help you to understand and work
That's it
with
there,
it.
yeah. If
Yeah.
you're considering certification for yourself, then you could
Mhm.
look at 18404, and it would give you an indication of
Mhm.
the nature that the training is likely to take and the subjects it will cover, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so our next question would be to look at 9001, ISO 9001, and wondering what the relationship could be there, if any.
Very strong. There are multiple clauses in 9001 that are closely linked with the techniques of Six Sigma. So, clause
Right.
9.1.3 in the standard, which is the clause requiring analysis of data. The clause actually states that the approaches to analysis of data may include statistical techniques. And of course, a lot of Six Sigma is about the use of statistics to turn data into intelligence. So things like control charts, process capability analysis, these sorts of things, the sorts of statistical techniques that ISO 9001 is considering as being appropriate in clause 9.1.3 are things that are taught on a Six Sigma training course.
Right.
And probably most obviously or most distinctly, clause 10, of course. Clause 10.2 requires effective corrective action based on root cause analysis, which is in essence what a yellow belt training course would teach, structured problem solving. And the final clause of all the standards, clause 10.3, requires continual improvement. And that's exactly, of course, what Six Sigma is. It's a tool for continual improvement. So the links between ISO 9001 and Six Sigma are very distinct. And it can be applied to other ISO standards, of course. The statistical techniques can be applied to environmental data. They can be applied to health and safety data. It's almost necessary for ISO 50001 for energy management, because you need to normalize your energy usage data. And that involves, well, the best approach for that is linear regression analysis. And again, that's another technique taught in Six Sigma as well. So the links to other standards are quite distinct. And I've actually used Six Sigma to improve health and safety performance in a business. It just takes a slight leap of faith or a change in perspective. If you think of a process producing outputs, and some of those outputs are unintended, if you think of an accident or incident as being an unintended output of a process, a defect, then you can apply Six Sigma techniques to reduce variation and thus reduce those defects, in this case, accidents. And we have actually I have used that in the past. So, but as you rightly say, most prevalent in ISO 9001 for quality management. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So there's absolute benefit in having the Six Sigma and an understanding of. If you're looking at your across lots of the ISOs. So really, really interesting to hear that perspective and how it all fits together nicely like that. So you've kind of touched on this anyway, Jonathan, but just to round it off, if there is anyone listening and they're interested in getting started with Six Sigma, what their first steps might be as a company?
As a company, from a leadership or strategic level, I would advise that maybe top management consider attending a one-day white belt course. The white belt course is really an introduction to Six Sigma and will give them an overview of the approach and enable decision making really regarding whether or not this approach is right for us. Is this something we want to look at in more detail? And of course, the lady or gentleman delivering that course should also be able to answer any questions they've got as well regarding Six Sigma. The yellow belt course can be taken in isolation. It focuses on structured problem solving, which is really about individual issues rather than long-term complex process issues. And then should you choose to, you can progress on to green belt, where that training includes elements of project management as well, or up to black belt, which covers a lot of the strategic elements of business process improvement, as well as management of change and that sort of stuff as well.
Lovely. So that kind of gives us an idea of what we can do. If you are listening to this podcast, thank you so much. I think Jonathan has given you a fantastic idea of what benefits you can get from this and how to go forward if you are interested. So it has been great hearing about that, Jonathan. So again, thank you for joining us today for this episode.
Pleasure, Donna. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely welcome. Hope to speak to you again soon. If anyone is watching, listening, interested in how we can help them, then please do get in contact with the team at Ascent. That would be wonderful. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please rate, review and subscribe. And we look forward to exploring standards with you again in the coming weeks. Thank you.